Hey guys, it's time for another installment of Probing Paul, my monthly Q&A series. This is episode number 73. You guys ask me the tech questions or questions about whatever you want to ask about, and I answer them as best I can. It's a pretty simple concept, but today we're going to be addressing a great fear that many people seem to have out there. There are new graphics cards on the horizon. They might be very power hungry. What does that mean?
Excellent!
Today's video is brought to you by the Corsair K70 RGB Pro mechanical gaming keyboard, powered by Axon processing technology and genuine Cherry MX mechanical switches. This board packs its aluminum frame with features like dynamic per-key RGB lighting, a detachable USB Type-C cable, durable PBT double-shot keycaps, and iQ software support on both PC and Mac OS. You also get dedicated media keys, a multifunction volume roller, onboard storage for up to 50 profiles, and more. So for further details on the Corsair K70 RGB Pro, click the sponsor link in the video description. Before I dive into the questions, a couple quick reminders. All the questions I'm answering today were posted in the comment section of last month's Probing Paul, so if you have a question you want me to answer next month, leave it in the comment section down below. Also, here's a quick look at the history of Probing Pauls, looking back through time, light from many, many years ago. It's almost like we're using the James Webb Space Telescope or something like that. Fantastic. But let's get to it with our first question from Drew Mangan, who says, Paul, congratulations on the new space. Thank you very much. We're enjoying it here. Do you think that with the ever-increasing power requirements for high-end hardware, and I'm specifically going to focus on GPUs here, we're going to see the small form factor market die off? I currently have a 5900X and a 3090 Founders Edition and a 14.5 liter case, but Drew is not sure if they'll be able to fit the next-gen CPU or these next-gen GPUs in a case that size and cool them adequately. So let's get you up to speed real quick. We're expecting new graphics cards from both AMD and NVIDIA in the next few months. AMD's is going to be the RX 7000 series of GPUs based on RDNA 3. And we're still dealing with rumor and speculation for these cards, but we're looking at possibly up to 450 watts for the RDNA 3 flagship Navi 31 chip. Meanwhile, NVIDIA is working on the RTX 40 series, and we're expecting the RTX 4090 or 4090 Ti to be the flagship there. It is probably going to be quite fast, or even just some recent rumors coming in this week with like potential 3D Mark Time Spy extreme scores in the 19,000 range, which is a big old jump over a previous generation. But at the same time, there's a new power connector standard called 12VH Power, which can provide 450 watts of power if you're using a dongled adapter, and it can go up to 600 watts if you're using an actual power supply that provides this connector directly from the power supply. It adds an additional 4 pins here to the 12-pin plug, and that allows it to go up to 600 watts. And for a lot of people, 600 watts is the power draw of their entire system. So even with these new power supplies that are launching that adhere to that standard, you're seeing a lot more focus on stuff like how it's designed in terms of power delivery specific to the GPU, because they want to make sure for these high-end cards that the power supply can keep up. So broadly speaking, new PC builders, especially those who are looking to build high-end systems once this next-gen hardware comes out, because as the question mentioned, we're also looking at potentially higher power draw from the CPUs as well. The new AM5 socket from AMD supports TDPs up to 170 watts, but the bigger increase is going to be coming from the GPU side. So anyone who has currently been rolling with a 600 to 700 watt, even 750 watt plus power supply might find that yes, they need to upgrade their power supply in order to accommodate one of these new GPUs. We can also safely assume that the heat output from these cards is going to be increased because there are certain laws of physics and thermodynamics that you can't really get around. So as we've already seen with cards like the 3090 Ti, we're going to be looking at bigger coolers, 3.5 to 4 slot coolers, larger fin stacks and fin arrays, and cards that are extending to 10, 11, or 12 inches long, so you might need a larger case as well. So for the enthusiast looking for an upgrade path for an existing system that's been spec'd out for current standards, yes, there might be some serious accommodations you need to make, whether it's a larger case, a power supply that can handle more wattage, or one that specifically can accommodate the 12VH power standard, potentially more cooling for the case, maybe adding more fans to bring in more cool air or evacuate more hot air to help keep temperatures down while you're gaming or doing other work with your system. And even beyond the PC itself, if you have a system that's going to be regularly drawing maybe 600 to 800 watts of power while in use, especially if you're located in the US, you might need to connect your system up to a different circuit in the house than other things that might be drawing lots of power, like if you have two systems set up in the same room, for example. Or you might just have to deal with the heat output in your gaming room or your gaming area, and again, evacuating that or having to run the AC more, which is probably a big concern, especially for those of you who are in Europe right now dealing with a pretty significant heat wave. But bringing it back to your original question, which was more specifically about small form factor systems, and my opinion right now, looking at the rumors, is that small form factor builders are probably going to have to make some accommodations by either not going with the highest tier of hardware and going with something that's maybe a step or two down, or perhaps making some modest adjustments to your opinion of what small form factor actually is. Some people are very strict about that and they say it has to have this many liters like inside or less. There's certainly the super slim small form factor cases where cooling can definitely be a challenge. Those will probably be even harder to run with the newest hardware, so you might just have to go with a slightly larger case, or you might have to dive into liquid cooling, which can be a more efficient way of getting the heat away from the components in the case, but is also a lot harder to do when you're working in a small space with a small form factor build. So Drew, thank you very much for your question. That's my assessment of it for right now, but we are still in the pre-launch phase, so there might be more information that comes to light in the next few months, so stick around and I'm sure I'll be covering that stuff as it comes out. Next question here is from Shasty2001. Hey Paul, I built my first computer a little over 2 years ago, used your tutorial videos to get through it. Thank you, and I hope they helped. The only issue I have and still have is I'm not sure what I should do to set my fan speeds or fan curve in the BIOS. So can you talk a little bit more about ideal temperatures and go over setting fan speeds and fan curves? And Rip Hero, thank you very much for that. So I'm gonna provide some general advice here, but bear in mind that everyone's system is gonna be a little bit different, and in particular, the fans in a system can vary a lot from fan to fan. You might have the exact same fan in every slot that's available in your system, or you might have a hodgepodge of fans that you've gathered from previous builds and slapped in there because you just wanted the airflow, and you might have different RPMs, different amperages between different fans. You might have some that are PWM and some that are DC. So the first thing you should do is reality check what fans you actually have installed in your system, because if there is a wide variety of them, you will have a more difficult time controlling them, especially if you have multiple fans connected to the same header that are different models. So once you've identified all your fans, you can take all the ones that are the same and group them up on the same fan controller. And if you get a powered fan controller, then it can power all those fans and you can just have one lead going over to your motherboard that allows you to control the speed. Alternatively, if you have different fans, then just make sure they're each connected to different fan headers on your motherboard. And then in your UEFI or BIOS, you can probably access an interface similar to this. This is MSI's fan control interface in their UEFI. And here you can see the CPU fan, the pump, and you can see individual system fans represented. Some of them show an RPM, that means the fan is on and spinning, and some say 0, which probably means there's nothing plugged into that header. From there, you can select the fan and start creating a fan curve. Here you should definitely choose PWM if you know the fan is a 4-pin PWM capable fan that's plugged into a 4-pin PWM header. That will give you much better control over the fan, as well as smoother ramp up and ramp down speeds, which can cause a bit of noise if a fan suddenly cranks up to high RPMs and then dies back down. For the low end speed, when temperatures are low and there's no load on the system, I usually aim for something around 25 to 40% fan speed. And here you can set it and then just listen to the system. There should be an apply function, or it might just take effect automatically depending on the motherboard that you're using. But find a point where you can hear it and then lower it down to the point where you can't hear it, and then that's a good starting point for you. Here's another Smart Fan UI from Gigabyte's UEFI, and they're all pretty similar. When the temperature is low down here, you can set the workload or the percentage of power going to the fan low, and then as the temperature gets higher, you can crank that up. Most of the time, the temperature it's looking at here will be your CPU temperature, although you can often adjust that. CPU temperature is a good one to look at, and I would say if your CPU gets up to above 70 to 75 degrees Celsius, at that point, I would set a much higher fan RPM just to try to keep everything cooled down, and it's usually not going to get that warm unless either the ambient temperature in your room is very warm, or the CPU is doing something very intensive like rendering out video or something like that, in which case you would want the fans to spin up in order to get rid of that heat. But like I said, that's just some general advice and hopefully gives you a starting off point for setting your fan curves. And let me know in the comments down below if you guys think I should do a full video dedicated to setting up fan curves, because it is a question that comes up pretty often. Next question from Corvid Moon. They're building a new PC. It is intended to be a video editing PC, and the question is about storage. And I don't want to get too picky here, but you said, I'm a little confused as far as storage memory needs. Do bear in mind when you're talking about computers, storage and memory are two different things, so it's important not to get confused between those. Storage that you're talking about is permanent or long-term storage, something that stays on your computer even when the computer is off, versus memory, which is volatile memory, which is only on while your computer's on. But let's boil this question down to, if you're building a video editing PC, what sort of storage configuration should you go with, since there are currently hard drives and then SSDs SSDs, and SSDs fall into two categories: your 2.5-inch SATA SSDs that have been around for a little bit longer, and your slightly newer M.2 NVMe SSDs, which can be a lot faster. And here's a convenient picture that shows all three. So first of all, your hard drives. Spinning mechanical drives, I would not say are obsolete, especially if you're considering video editing. Mechanical hard drives are still the capacity king, and if you're dealing with a lot of footage, especially 4K footage or beyond, and you want to have a backup of that, you probably want at least a couple mechanical hard drives, ideally in some sort of a RAID configuration, just to give you a little bit of redundancy in case of a hardware failure. Of course, you should also be backing up everything on your system as well, but for the purposes of this Q&A, let's just move on. A SATA SSD like this one is often going to be a good balance between the amount of capacity you can get and the dollar amount you pay in terms of price per gigabyte of storage. So having at least one 2.5-inch SSD that's maybe 1 or 2 terabytes in capacity is a good way to go. And here again, you might even have the option of getting a couple of them and pairing them up in either a RAID 1 configuration if you want a little bit of redundancy, or RAID 0 configuration if you want a little bit more performance. But if you're considering more performance out of an SSD, I'd say just go with an M.2 NVMe SSD. And here you should note that they fall into 3 speed classes right now, or at least that's how I sort them out in my mind. There's sort of the entry-level speed class for M.2 SSDs. Here you can still get a good bang for your buck in terms of cost per gigabyte. If you look at sequential read and write speeds for a SATA SSD, it'll be around 500 to 550 megabytes per second. That first step for M.2 NVMe SSDs is going to be around 1500 to 2000 megabytes per second, so a big step up in read and write speeds over a SATA SSD. The second tier in M.2 SSD storage would be the PCI Express Gen 3 drives that are actually fast enough to mostly saturate the PCI Express Gen 3 bus. These will hit around 2500 to 3500 megabytes per second sequential read and writes. You'll typically pay a little bit more in terms of cost per gigabyte for those drives, but in particular if you're doing something like video editing, it's going to be able to pull those big old 4K files off that drive and get them into system memory a lot faster than something like a SATA drive, or especially a mechanical drive. Beyond that, we now have PCI Express Gen 4 M.2 NVMe SSDs. Those will get up into the 4,000 to 7,000 megabytes per second plus range, but there is a price premium since those are the newest and fastest drives. And since the launch of Intel's Alder Lake platform, we now have PCI Express Gen 5 on the market, and there are PCIe Gen 5 drives starting to come out that can get to 7,000, 8,000 megabytes per second and beyond, although those are still pretty cost prohibitive, especially for someone who's just building a video editing PC for the first time. My final bit of advice to you here though is to get 3 drives for your system. One SSD to be your main operating system drive that you would install likely Windows onto, and for that I'd recommend 500 gigs to 1 terabyte. A second drive to operate as a cache drive, and then a third drive to operate as your main drive where all of your raw videos are stored. And with that, I think I've spent way too much time on these first 3 questions, so let's see if we can get through the rest of them fairly quickly. Hold on, this question is from Chris from Coalition Gaming, who joined us for our live stream just on Saturday. This is a serious question, and I don't want to answer it quickly. Chris runs a YouTube channel. I will link it in the description if you're interested. His question is, if YouTube video views and growth dropped and stagnated for me, and you've tried many different things over the course of several years to fix that with no luck, how long would you keep trying before deciding to quit? And I know this is a very personal question for Chris because, as he adds at the end, he's been trying to break into the PC Tech YouTube thing for quite some time, and it's been heartbreakingly difficult. Chris, I'm going to give you a pretty straight up answer here, and I'm not going to pull any punches. I would say, if I was looking at myself and I was starting a YouTube channel right now to do what I do right now versus when I actually started, which was back in 2007, 2008, I don't think I could do it. I think when I started YouTube, I happened to have some good timing. I had a good in because I started working for Newegg, and I had some pretty immediate clout because I was doing videos for Newegg before I started doing my own channel. And the way things have changed in the past 10 to 15 years in terms of content creation, the number of people trying to do content creation, the amount of noise the space is filled with is vastly different than it was when I started out doing what I'm doing. This is why whenever somebody's asked me in the past like how they can get into doing what I do and making tech videos on YouTube, and I hope I've been consistent with this in the past, I've been very specific in my recommendation. Make videos because you enjoy making the videos. Make videos because you want to do something that fulfills you personally without the need for getting those views and making enough money to make a living off of it, because I think it's a really, really difficult thing to do right now. And I think we often have a bit of survivor bias when we look at the current channels that are successful or successful enough to do it full time, because there are a lot of people out there who look at like what I do and they say, hey, I could do that. And honestly, they are probably right, but they would need the right number of things to fall into place in order to make that happen. And I try to be very honest with myself about where I came from and also grateful for the opportunities that I had at the time when they came up for me. But to veer back to answering your question specifically, if the views dropped off and the income dropped off, how long would I continue doing this? I would stop when it stopped being fun to do. If I wasn't enjoying the creative process from the get-go, then I doubt I would have the motivation to do this for an extended period of time, especially if I needed to, earn enough money to buy food and pay my rent and everything and raise my family. But like I said, guys, there's lots of creators out there making very good videos, and a lot of them don't get the views they deserve. So again, check out Chris's channel. I'll link it down in the description. And Chris, that's my answer for you. I hope it wasn't too harsh, but thanks again for joining us on Saturday. All right, Moon Money is next, and this one I already spotted last month. It's good to see you, Paul. You too. By the way, did you know when typing in a smartphone, you can hold down the space bar and move the cursor anywhere? So if you're sitting there typing away on your smartphone and you realize, oh no, there's a typo back here, and you have to like find where you were typing and tap right on that spot in between those two little letters, and the cursor never goes exactly where you want it. And on Android, you get a little teardrop below it that you can shift back and forth, and that works okay. But tap and hold the space bar itself, and then you can move the cursor back and forth, and it's a much larger space to tap, and it can let you accurately put the cursor where you want. I didn't know this. Moon Money, thank you for sharing this information with me. And if any of you guys do a lot of typing on your phone and have had difficulty putting the cursor right where you want to, try this trick out. It's really, really helpful. All right, one more before we do a little mail time. This is from Daniel Riley, and this is just a shout out to the May 22 Tech News, which I mentioned in the previous Probing Paul. If you guys haven't watched the May 22 Tech News, word of warning, there is a bit of adult language right at the beginning, but we were discussing it. And a lot of people have been like, hey, Paul, I really liked that. So I just wanted to say thank you to anyone who has jumped in and been like, Paul, I appreciated that one, and thank you for not writing me a letter scolding me for my potty mouth. First, we have a letter from Robbie Black, and if you'd like to send me anything, Paul's Hardware, P.O. Box 4325, Diamond Bar, California. It is linked in the description of every single one of my videos. Let's see what Robbie has to say. Oh, this is lovely. Okay, I probably can't read this entire thing. Robbie's 23 years old and works in clinical research at the Dana-Farber Cancer Institute in Boston on clinical trials in lymphoma. Robbie says he's a longtime viewer of the channel, has a bunch of my merch, hoodie and coasters and everything. And he wrote this letter after watching my video that I did about Hero, who was my 100-pound pit bull mastiff dog who passed away back in May. Hero's passing was really, really hard for me, and I made a video to sort of talk about him and share his life story. And Robbie wrote some really incredibly kind words about this and about me. The purpose of this brief letter is to send love, condolences, and appreciation for the work you do and stories you share. And Robbie, as you said, you did not have the words as you were typing this letter. I do not have the words to say thank you right now. Thank you. I don't know what more to say than that, but this is an incredible letter. It's incredibly heartfelt. I am touched, honestly, so thank you so much. This was way, way better than that letter that scolded me for using bad language. I'm gonna save this one, Robbie, and just incredibly appreciated. Thank you so much for your kind words. Next up, we have a couple Amazon Prime shipments. So I believe these were things that were maybe ordered by someone and then shipped to me for the purposes of being foozled. What is this? Contains weird and wild flavors. With flavors like liver and onions, rotten egg, stink bug, dirty dishwater, dead fish, and stinky socks. Wow. And this was sent over by the Ruben, who is on Twitter and has followed the channel and often participates in chat and stuff like that. He says, my happy place is tinkering with PCs while watching your channel. Here's to continued success for you and your family. P.S. The weird photo is also from me. I'm hilarious, from the Ruben. Ruben, the timing on this is not ideal, so I'm not gonna try this right now, but I'm gonna save this, and at an appropriate time in the future, they will be made use of. Maybe the next time Kyle and I do a live stream, that would be cool. All right, I'm pretty sure this one is from a fan who has also been participating in Joe's live streams, who has an interesting nickname that Joe has given him. Joe, what's his nickname?
Fucker.
Fucker.
Yeah, like fucker, like meet the fuckers.
Oh, I gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh.
I gotcha. So this is a desk service area kit. So now Joe at his desk can have a receptionist placard, so everyone knows that he's the receptionist. Please ring bell for assistance, thank you. And I guess I can just, anytime I need Joe, I just be like, I need an edit, Joe. It's got some nice sustain there. I almost forgot the gift note. Hey Paul, I thought this handy bell would be the perfect addition for your receptionist, editing corner. From Jeremy, AKA Fucker. All right, I have 3 boxes to open that have come in, and these, I already know what's in them. I'm just opening them to share and kind of cross-promote a giveaway, a build, and something that's ongoing that you guys could still enter to win. Last week, Kyle and I did a charity live stream for Extra Life in order to raise money for Children's Miracle Network hospitals. One of the giveaway items is a computer that I have yet to build, at least as of the filming of this video, and I needed a 12700K for it. So that has now arrived. So if you did not check out that video, you can go watch us play games for close to 9 hours. Our Extra Life charity page is still open as well, so if you have some cash to spare, it's for a very good cause and you can donate there. It goes to Children's Miracle Network hospitals, specifically the Children's Hospital Los Angeles. And most of the giveaways associated with that live stream are open through August 4th. So even if you weren't there to be with us live during the live stream, you can still enter to win, and you don't even need to donate if you don't have the cash to do that. So feel free to enter those giveaways and stay tuned for the build video, which has some mystery parts that haven't been revealed yet. I will be posting that video on August 1st. And finally, I'm opening these packages, which have been sent from San Diego. And these were sent by our good friend Mike, aka MB67, who has been helping support our charity live streams for quite a few years now. And even though we gave him very short notice to do so, he still provided 2 graphics cards for giveaway for this event. And these are not like mid-range or entry-level graphics cards at all. In fact, I'm gonna leave the plastic on this one so it can stay nice and pristine. We have a GeForce RTX 3080. This is the EVGA For the Win 3 hybrid version that comes with an all-in-one liquid cooler pre-attached. And this giveaway, again, is still open. This one is available for domestic viewers. If you're in the US or Canada, you can enter, and if you're chosen, you will win this card. And then we also tried to have some giveaways for our international viewers. And since we have some full gaming PCs available domestically here, we offered up this 3080 Ti, which is also the For the Win version, but the Hydro Copper blocked card. So you would need to integrate this card into a full custom loop, so that may or may not be within your capabilities. But I just wanted to quickly show these cards off, do an unboxing of them as I have done with several of the things that Mike has sent over in the past. And of course, to remind you guys that the giveaways are still open for these, and the Extra Life charity fundraiser is still open as well. We broke $15,000 with our initial live stream on Saturday. We do have further goals that we're hoping to meet as the year progresses, since Extra Life is open for the entire year of 2022. And we have at least one more charity stream planned for winter, late November or early December, and we'll follow up with more info on that once we get the date nailed down. But guys, that is gonna wrap it up for this video. Thanks for joining me for a bit of Q&A, a bit of mail time. And again, if you wanna send me anything, it doesn't have to be graphics cards like this, but the address for the PO box is down in the video's description. There you can also find links to several of the articles I talked about today, and a link to my store at paulshardware.net, where you can buy shirts, mugs, pint glasses, and all manner of high quality merchandise to help support my YouTube channel. Thanks again for watching this video, guys. Hit the thumbs up button on the way out if you enjoyed it. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel if you're not already, and we'll see you in the next video.